In 2024, an incredibly rare 1996 Porsche 911 GT2 traded hands at RM Sotheby's for over $2 million. Porsche built roughly 194 of these cars for the entire world, and out of that tiny production run, a mere 57 were actually given license plates and made legal to drive on public roads. Usually, a $2 million price tag guarantees a few things. You expect highly refined technology, state-of-the-art safety nets, and ultimate luxury. This car offers absolutely none of that. Inside, there is no soundproofing. There are no rear seats. You get a raw dashboard, a heavy clutch, and an unforgiving leather bucket seat that holds you in place. People in the automotive world call this machine the Widowmaker. It commands a hushed reverence at car meets and auction blocks alike, begging the question of how a stripped-down, punishing vehicle earned a reputation so deadly. The answer starts in the mid-1990s with the BPR Global GT series. Porsche wanted to race in this highly competitive class, but the rulebook demanded they build and sell road-going versions of their track cars to the public. It's a regulatory process called homologation. Their starting point was the standard 911 Turbo. Out of the box, the Turbo was a heavy, stable Grand Tour that relied on an all-wheel drive system to keep its massive power safely pinned to the pavement. But the GT2 racing class had strict weight limits. To shed 200 kilograms and qualify for the grid, Porsche's engineers ripped the entire all-wheel drag system out of the chassis. Without that front-wheel grip, 100% of the twin-turbo engine's power was suddenly routed exclusively to the rear wheels. And they did this without adding a single electronic stability control or traction net. By brutally stripping away those safety mechanisms to satisfy a racing loophole, Porsche inverted the car's personality. They took a predictable, stable touring car and turned it into an unpredictable track weapon. Looking at this top-down schematic of the 993 chassis, you can see the first half of the danger. The 911 platform features an extreme rear engine layout, meaning the massive weight of the motor sits entirely behind the rear axle line. Under normal grip, this weight helps push the tires into the road. But the exact moment those back tires lose traction in a corner, that weight acts like a pendulum. It swings the rear end outward, violently pivoting the car around the axle. This graph shows how the engine delivers power, tracking RPMs against turbo boost. At low speeds, the line stays completely flat. The engine feels sluggish and underpowered. This is turbo lag, the delay before the exhaust gases spin the KKK twin turbochargers up to speed. Then, at exactly 4,500 RPM, 0.9 bar of boost hits instantly. The graph spikes vertically as 430 horsepower is suddenly dumped to the rear wheels in one massive surge. A sudden spike of turbo power triggers an unstoppable rear pendulum swing. This catches even experienced drivers off guard, overwhelming the tires and causing devastating crashes. Because the mechanics were so extreme, they completely dictated the exterior design. Nothing on the GT2 was built to look stylish. To handle the massive hit of turbo boost, Porsche had to use significantly wider rear tires. That meant widening the track, which required bolting massive flared fiberglass fenders directly onto the bodywork. They didn't even bother to hide the hardware. The exposed rivets holding the fenders together were a practical necessity, allowing pit crews to easily rip off and replace shattered body panels mid-race after an inevitable crash. The aggressive, iconic look of the GT2 is simply the physical manifestation of a brutal, unapologetic survival tool engineered for the racetrack. As a motorsport weapon, the engineering worked perfectly. The GT2 dominated its class, winning 7 of 11 BPR rounds in its first full season in 1996, and taking home class victories at the 24 Hours of Le Mans. But while professional racing drivers tamed it on the track, the street-legal versions became something else entirely. On public roads, surviving a drive in the GT2 became the ultimate test of driving purity. The 993 GT2 stands as the definitive endpoint of Porsche's air-cooled era. Immediately after this car, the industry shifted toward water-cooled engines, complex electronics, and heavily computerized driving interventions. The GT2 does not command a $2 million price tag in spite of being dangerous. It commands that price because it is a dangerous, uncompromised piece of analog engineering. It demands total respect, capturing a raw, visceral era of driving that simply isn't allowed to exist anymore.